Good afternoon. It's just a minute or two after the new noon. We changed our clocks in the UK here, and apparently Jack, who is in Germany, in Europe, I think he was still in Europe, Germany, and has changed as well. So we're all noon here, and we're here to talk about mixing genres and forms. I'm very intrigued when we get to Andy, because I know that you do some writing, other writing, so I'm intrigued as to, you have one biography out at the moment. So I shall start as they do in all. Well, this isn't anonymous because you've got all our names in AA and NA type meetings. So hello, my name is Morgan Bailey, Morgan with an E. And I write crime fiction, women's fiction, and non-fiction about writing. Andy, good afternoon.
Hello, hi. My name's Andrea Woolhead, and I'm a non-fiction writer. So,
Okay.
and I only have one book.
Okay.
All right.
David, on to you.
Oh, me. I'm next. I'm
Yes.
David Wake, and I write adventure stories, science fiction, fantasy, comedy, cozy mystery, thrillers, and I've done a non-fiction book. So, yeah, quite a range.
Wonderful. Jack, love your top.
Thank you. Cat hair, my favorite
Yes,
accessory.
we have two of them, two of those and a dog.
My name's Jack Chandler, and I write primarily thrillers, but I've recently released my first romantic fantasy.
Yay. Janet, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. I started off writing crime thrillers, international crime thrillers. Then I went on to domestic thrillers. And after COVID, I then went on to writing love stories and romance. And now I'm writing a non-fiction book, biography in collaboration with a friend of mine.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Martin, hello.
Hello, everyone. My name's Martin. I'm a writer.
Long time no see, because we've just done your spotlight.
Yes, it wasn't too far away, and yes, you're keeping me busy, Morgan, which is good. But anyway, my name's Martin, Brummie author. As you can tell by my accent, you may need subtitles for this. I'm a writer of. I like to think I'm a multifunctional writer. It kind of broadly comes under the dark fiction label. That could be mainly because I don't quite know a genre I want to write, and I want to write lots of different genres anyway, which I suppose makes me okay for this panel. But also a non-fiction music writer. I've done a couple of biographies.
A couple and a few.
A couple and a few.
Yes. Sarah, welcome to the panel here.
Sarah Bannon. I write fiction and non-fiction. I ghostwrite, and the genres that I've probably mostly stayed within is romantic fiction. But I've written crime, I've written romance, I've written young adult. Crikey, you name it, I've probably written it. Sci-fi. And the one that I'm currently working on is a dark romance, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, Andrea, you have a background in sport, I remember. So we won't go into too much detail about your autobiography about NASA. How did you find switching from sport to writing about a person?
Well, it was quite a long journey, actually, because I gave up teaching sport when I was 37 years old. And I ended up teaching communication skills and then English as a second language. So I actually moved over into communicating. And with that, and that's what writing is really, it's communicating. I wrote UCAS references. That was a long, long time ago. And then I had my arm twisted to writing sports articles about tennis. And I did this for 10 years. I've actually thought very carefully before I came on here today about what I really do. And I think I actually take facts and try and make them accessible and interesting. So while I'm a bit serious, I like to make my writing entertaining, and I hope I succeed. I hope I succeed with that. So it's not really a very big stretch from communicating ideas and facts and things to writing somebody else's biography, because it's their truth and their facts, and I'm fitting it into a sort of a world history as well. So lots of sort of cross-referencing, but the main thing that I want to do when I write is to make things accessible and readable, and not sort of a drudge to get through hard facts.
Have you found, having to write articles, that you can be quite concise in your writing?
Oh, absolutely, because you're given sort of, and and you always write over, and then you need to sort of clip it down and sort of review it and look at what the best bits are, or the most important bits. I tried writing some fiction, and I couldn't decide whether the person's character was more important or the incident is more important. And all I've done is just jiggled my paragraphs around to try and think which is the most important emphasis. So I actually think that people who can write fiction are absolutely amazing, because I've really struggled over about 500 words of not getting very far and not actually communicating an idea I want to communicate that's in my head. So
That's really interesting, because I sort of see fiction as being something that happens to somebody you've made up,
yeah,
that it's still got to be relatable. You've still
yeah,
got the characters, you've still got the settings and the plot. It's not happening to a real person. And I
yeah,
think the thing about writing is that anybody picked up a novel and can imagine themselves in that situation, how they would react, and so on. And they want if they like the character, is for them to be okay by the end of it.
yeah.
Now, Janet, you've just said that you're writing a friend's autobiography or biography for her, with her.
Yeah.
How are you
Yes,
finding that? And
it's very challenging, actually, very different to what I've been doing. Like Andy just said, when after you've been writing fiction, you've been writing the other side. I've been writing all fiction, so it's sort of like now I've got to sort of take life seriously, I suppose, in a way. The research has been amazing, absolutely amazing, because the girl who I'm writing it with, Jo, we met on the first day at university back in the early 80s. That was quite a long story, but we got drunk on the first day at uni together with another friend, and that was it. But it solved a friendship for 45 years after that. It was fantastic. But she came to me 3 years ago, and she said to me, Jan, she said, I want to write my mum and dad's story. And basically her mother came out of Germany on the kinder transport when she was 14 years old. And she left behind her parents, of course, and family members, thinking that they would see each other again. And they didn't. They perished in the camps. Her grandmother died in Auschwitz. And then her father escaped from the tunnels of Warsaw during the Polish uprising. And he left behind his father and his brother, who were shot by the Gestapo in front of his mother. And she was then forced to walk in front of the tanks. So it's been an incredible story. It's incredible research, because Jo just literally gave me a box of documents and said, I don't understand anything. They're in German, Italian, French. She said, Jan, just make of it what you can. She didn't know who anybody was. So it's been a bit like Miss Marple. I've had this sort of board up here with who everybody is, and mapping together family trees from all, the paternal and the maternal side. So before I even started writing, I did sort of 6 to 8 months of research, just to sort of get a timeline of, what was happening when, who everybody was. And we've come up with the most incredible facts that we found out just by default, not even realizing things that had happened. For example, one, Barbara's father, he died in the camp, but his brother married into another family, and through her family 36 members were saved. And they were saved by a man called Kalmus Rimac, who was in America, who actually invented Technicolor. and he provided an affidavit for 36 members of the family to escape from Germany. So just by default, that brother got out, but the other brother, the uncle, the father died. So all of these sort of early stories were happening, and then Jo said to me, "Well, look," she said, I want my story to be in there, because it turned out that her parents couldn't have children. So Jo and her brother are adopted. And I always knew that since the first day we met. But she had no desire to ever go and find her family. For her, Barbara and Julian were her parents. And it was only after we were investigating all of their stories, we realized that her story was then going to be a standalone story after this one. There was just too much otherwise. So we've made it that this is a biography now about her parents and how they came to England, which is very topical now, about immigration and about immigrants being welcomed here into the country, and the importance of cultural integration and that sort of thing. And then next I'm going to write is Jo's memoir, which is how, when her mother is dying, she says to Jo, "I don't want you to be on your own. Please go and find your birth mother." And that is going to be a standalone memoir that I'll write afterwards.
Wow.
So it's been an amazing.
Because in both your case and Andrea's case, which is Syria, that there's so much that's written about both countries and the history of both countries and the eras that you cover, that you do have at least a framework to build upon in your particular instances.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, I think one of the most important things is it's still so relevant to today. You tend to think after the war that would be the last war to end all wars, but it isn't like that. Look where we are. Who would have ever thought? That this is where we're all at, which is the most horrifying part. You see history starting to repeat itself, and that is the most frightening, or one of the most frightening things, I think. And it's quite shocking, really. So the fact that we can parallel it, and make it relative to today, and it isn't some historical fiction that all happened in the past to people's grandparents that no one cares about anymore. It's actually relevant to today. People are still being displaced by war. They're still having to leave their bomb war, countries. They've still lost everything, their families, their possessions, the human basics. They've all lost that basic security. And I think that's just so poignant at the moment in the world, sadly.
Yeah. Now, Martin, you write. Oh, David.
I've got a question, actually, to people who write biographies. We had a little panel a little while ago about whether you're a pantser or a plotter. I'm a puzzler, not relevant. Whether you make
another conversation.
Surely, if you're writing biography, then the plotting has been done for you, isn't it? You've got to follow the story as it happened. You're not making stuff up as you go along.
No.
You have a plot that you've put on your wall with all your mismarbled bits of string or whatever.
Yeah, but does it have to be chronological? Do you write it chronologically? Or do you order it in the book, at least chronologically?
A memoir a biography should be chronological, as far as I'm aware, and a memoir is just focus on a particular point in time, on a particular event that's happened. But a biography, as far as I'm aware, it has to be sort of like in chronological order. I mean, you can have some flashbacks, of course, I'm sure, and sort of put things in context, but it has to be a historical sequence of events, I believe.
I've noticed that biographies and autobiographies particularly tend to start with some moment in their life.
Yeah.
Then they go back to the beginning and say, this is how we got to that point.
Yes.
That's how mine is. And for NASA's story, it was December the 8th, 2024, because that's when Assad was overthrown. And that was the point at which he felt free to be able to speak openly about how he felt about the regime. So it was very much a cathartic release. And to start at the beginning of his life would spend an awful long time until you got to the point where he had a gun pointed at his head and he was thrown in a dungeon. So the war and the what happened in Syria is as important as what actually happened in his growing up and his attitudes to what had happened to him in his growing up in Syria and the problems that he sort of encompassed since. But you were talking about wars. The First World War for us There were 40 million people living in Britain when the First World War happened. 880,000 men died and 2 million were injured. And in so many ways, that war affects our psyche today. And yet, in Syria, over the 13 years of disruption, half the country was either killed, missing, or displaced. You know, we're talking about sort of over 100 years since the First World War. How long will it take to repair the issues, the problems, the disruption that happened over those 13 years, and 2 generations of children growing up without education, and people living in sort of, well, bombed out houses, so
It is. It's shocking, isn't it?
That's the thing about the power of media and the power of being able to write this kind of story, that we can learn about other countries that we've never been to, we'll never go to.
So just going back to David's question about plotting and everything, and what Andy was saying as well, I think that it's very important when you construct a novel for your development of a novel. You do have that hook, like Andrew was saying. You have to have that hook in the beginning that's going to hook the reader in, like you would with any novel, like with any book, regardless of fiction or non-fiction. So you have to pick out a moment in that time, like Andy did, like I have done, which I picked out the Night of Kristallnacht in Germany. So you have to still have that development arc, I think, as you're writing any book, whether it's narrative, non-fiction, biographies, memoirs, whatever it is, so that you pick out the important parts. So David, you're right, you do have the plot points in a biography because they are the plot points in your protagonist story, but you've got to be selective about which parts are the most impactful, with the most drama, that have the most effect emotionally for yourself and for the reader and for the person who you're writing the book for as well.
You have to find the story.
You have to find the story, because in everything that we discovered, and anybody else who's writing non-fiction, there's so much that you don't put in. There is so much research that you do, and you as the author have to decide, well, which is the part that's going to make this really stand out, that's going to make this really impactful and have an effect on the reader. So you've still got to, how you do your sort of, you're plotting for a fiction book, and you're just increasing the stakes the whole time until the real final bit, and that's a similar sort of narrative arc that you need to try and get in, I believe, with a biography or a memoir, to keep those people hooked in, to keep the reader keep wanting to turn the page.
No, absolutely.
It's interesting. This is kind of totally off topic, and yet with Janet, because I live in Germany. So the place I live is where the majority of the trains left for the camps.
Oh, where do you live?
Well, the town that I'm referring to is Darmstadt, and I live in a village just next door.
Okay.
And we have a monument that was put up for Kristallnacht, for all of the people who were sent off. It actually got vandalized. It was made of glass for Kristallnacht, and it got vandalized. And what they did was they then put the shards of it inside a perspex box.
Oh, right.
So it still stands on the same place. It's still the place where all the trains left from. And they kept it as the shards of it, which I thought was quite poignant.
It's even more poignant, isn't it? In some ways, yeah. Gosh, that's
there are different things. I mean, the Germans, for example, they don't have like we have a commemoration towards soldiers who died in the war. They don't do that, but they have a general Day of the Dead, where you're not really meant to honor people who died in the war specifically. You just honor people who have died in your family for whatever reason, any reason at all. And there's little things like there's little brass plaques outside the buildings where people were taken from their homes, with their names on it and the dates and things like that. So you see them all over the place on the pavements everywhere.
Okay. What's the word for that? Steffenheimer or something? What's the German word for that? There's a Steffenheimer.
I think it's Steffenstein, but
Steffenstein, that's it. Yes. It's incredible. Yeah.
And you see people go along, they do polish them.
Do they?
Little brass
Just
plaque.
as a matter of interest, how long ago did they smash the crystal knacked glass? How long
Oh, I
ago?
can't remember. It was soon after we came out here. We came out here in 95. So
Yeah,
I would say before 2000.
yeah. No, because there's such a rise here in anti-Semitism. I just wondered if it was
Yeah.
more recent than that. Yeah.
No, it was certainly before 10 years. So certainly beginning of 2000s, if not the end of 1990s.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, there's also obviously rise of the AFD here.
Yes, it's massive, isn't it?
So
I know.
annoying.
I know.
On a
So
lighter note,
infuriating.
Yes,
um,
yes.
Yeah, sorry,
that's all
sorry.
right. No,
Um,
it's all interesting.
if Janet,
Especially,
if you
I
want
have
to get in touch
I have
later,
friends in
do.
Germany.
Definitely, we will.
I have friends
Sorry,
in Germany.
Morgan,
So no,
please.
it's fine. I have friends in Germany, so it's all really interesting. Martin, you started off in the music industry, and at some point before, during, or after you writing fiction, you also wrote music, your musical non-fiction.
Yeah.
Which came first in your writing?
I mean, first writing was I'll cover this. I'll do the nutshell version. I won't go into my spotlight again. But
Okay.
at a very young age, I'd won a couple of national competitions for my school around the age of 6, which kind of told me I could tell stories, I guess, and was okay with words. The school done out of it. They was able to stop their library, their primary school library. But then really music, I would say, although that happened, music was primarily my first love. I wanted to be a pop rock star. I wrote songs, Sail Close, supported the Fine Young Cannibals. Got to talk to Mickey Most in RAK Records, Chrysalis Records, the Rouge songs in Germany, actually, Jack. That was a guy, Wolfgang, I can't remember his last name, but he was the guy behind the Jennifer Rush's The Power of Love. So, but all these sort of near misses, really, got me to a point where I thought, you know what, I've got at least one novel in me, and I loved reading anyway, so I just swapped the songwriting for the novel writing, really. Um, and then music always plays a part even in my fiction, Judd Stone series. Judd Stone, who is a kind of the naughtiest policeman stroke private investigator you've ever met. He's a massive Beatles, John Lennon fan, just like myself. So I can live a lot of my wishes through Judd, if you like. But then when it comes to non-fiction, just listening to some of the conversations before, I think writing fiction first help me with the biographies because, as has been said about, you still need a story. Well, one of the biographies I wrote was Robin George, who's sadly no longer with us. That was part of the reason that I was asked to do his biography because he was terminally ill. But he had all these near misses, more near misses than I had. I mean, he got more success than I had in the music industry. He'd worked with Noddy Holder. He had all the ingredients to be a pop star. He had the looks, could play guitar phenomenally well, and just a couple of things that went wrong. One, he first of all, he after being a great producer and session musician, working with Noddy Holder, Roy Wood, etc., Asia, the band Asia, he then found his own success with Dangerous Music album and his single Heartline with Bronze Records. Some of you may know the actress Eleanor Bron. It was her brother who ran Bronze Records. Just as he was taking off, back in them days, it was about distribution. It's not like streaming now, everything's instant. It was about distribution. So how quick can you print the records to get them out to sell? Just as he was getting in towards the top 40, and there'd been loads of money thrown at him to do a very epic video of Heartline with him playing guitar on top of a castle and everything. Bronze went bust. That stopped the distribution happening. So that was his first knockback, really. And then Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott wanted him. He was going to launch him in the new Thin Lizzy. They'd worked on some songs together. Phil from Thin Lizzy, Phil Lynott, I'm sure many of you know who that person is. He took the songs away to work over at Christmas to rejoin again. Phil sadly died, so the new Thin Lizzy launched. That didn't happen. And then also just a final one. He'd also worked with Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin, produced his album, wrote songs together. The studio got broke into, and all the tapes were stolen, and they've never been seen. So
if you wrote this as a novel, people would go, no,
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
that
exactly,
won't happen.
Too many
exactly.
coincidences. It never happens.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So obviously, the theme of Robin's biography, to put it in a nutshell, is about his resilience, kept bouncing back, and he even approached his illness like that.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
didn't, even though as his official biographer, and I'm honoured that he did call me that. He never really went into his illness. He didn't want to talk about that. It was all about his music. He just wanted to do music,
Yeah.
and he was resilient. He just kept bouncing back from knock back after knock back. As long as he could play his music and write songs,
Yeah.
he just kept going. And then the other one with Fuzzbox, that's the most recent one. Fuzzbox 80s girl band. I took the Pops 8 years. Their themes then became, a whole all-female band that set up the foundation for the likes of Spice Girls, Girls Aloud, all them that come later. The difference being that they could play their own instruments. Um, and also, they were kind of a female band in a time where they faced misogyny. They were very young, so that three of them were schoolgirls when they got signed. So all them, not so much a story as stark as Robbins plotted, and you do have to have more of a structure, obviously, with biography, because I'm a pantster, so you have to have more structure with biography. But there's definitely key themes that had to come to the fore in the Fuzzbox story. I kind of put them as four playful kittens, really, which is what they were, still are. Well, three of them are. One of them sadly passed away. So obviously, that's a dark moment that has to be covered in the book as well. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered the question there. I went totally off
Thank
tangent.
you. I think that's great. David, your one non-fiction, from memory, that's writing related.
Yes, it's publishing, which is about why and how you should self-publish.
Right.
So it's not a biography. So I'm wondering what the difference is between biography non-fiction and non-fiction about a particular subject, let us say.
Well, in theory, a person, I suppose.
Yeah.
Bio.
I wonder if the approach is different. I mean, it's interesting that somebody said earlier, it reminded me that with fiction, there's a certain test of suspension of disbelief. Whereas biography, because it's true, has always got that kind of trump card. You can say, well, that's how it happened. So people say, the truth is stranger than fiction. Well, it's not true, because you can take any story and put zombies in it and it will be stranger than the truth. But there's a suspension of disbelief in fiction, which you don't kind of need to pass that test in biography or something that's true.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, you write fiction and non-fiction, and most or all of your books are writing related?
I'd say probably half, of the non-fiction are writing related. Yeah, excuse me, everyone. I've just got over a nasty cold, so I had absolutely no voice whatsoever from Mother's Day for the whole week, and it is obviously back. But the more I talk, it could go. So I'm afraid you'll have to listen to me being a little bit croaky. My mum said to me, "It sounds really sexy." I thought, well, I'll take it, but it's from my point of view, it just sounds like I've got rocks in my mouth or something. My first, oh crikey, I've been writing for about 41 years now, and my first foray into non-fiction was when my daughter was at primary school. She's in her 30s now, but when she was at primary school, the Lollipop Man, I presume you all know what a Lollipop Man is, person that saw the children across the road. He approached me. He knew I wrote lots of fiction, and he approached me and said he wanted to write his life story. And I, at that point, I'd done a few articles, but I hadn't done anything for anybody else. And he asked me to do it, and I said, well, it's essentially going to be ghostwriting. And at that time, I didn't know anything about ghostwriting. I thought it was purely for celebrities, and that was that. And we had a chat about it, and it wasn't going to be a book for the public to buy. It was purely for him to hand down in his family. That's been the majority of the biographies and memoirs that I've written, but the non-fiction other stuff, that's been for the public. But his one, that was an interesting one, and really kind of gave me the confidence to add ghostwriting to my toolkit, if you like, or my services. So when I did start my business back in 2011, that was obviously one of my services, ghostwriting. But it was a good few years between him asking me and starting my business. The ones you can see behind me, it's just a selection of the books I've got. I never know which way around that is. Anyway, the ones up there.
The opposite way to the way you think is my experience.
Yeah, always. So I'm thinking, that one is non-fiction, and that one, and the one next to it, but I don't know which way around we're doing it. So the majority of the non-fictions have been, I would say, writing related, and the other ones have been either memoirs, biography, and I've also done a local history one. I used to work in mental health, and there was a site that was about to be decommissioned and a new site being built right next to it. But as I was working in the office, I could see the old site being decommissioned, and the building that was there since the 1930s. And I thought, I'm a big lover of local history, and I'm also a lover of architecture. And seeing it all just get thrown away and discarded and demolished, it really stuck in my throat. So I sent an email to the chief exec. I mean, I was just like lowly admin, chief exec, saying, I've got an idea. I've written these books in the past. What would you think about blah, blah, blah? And that was something like September, October time. I didn't hear a thing. I thought, well, of course, they're not going to take any notice of me. And then I think it was like April, they got in touch and said, we love the idea. Can you do it by May? I'm like, what? So working full time and then doing that in my free time. So I managed it, but Jesus Christ. And that's kind of like, from my point of view, the epitome of the NHS at that time. It was just like, no, wait, as my husband says, hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
There's
one of the locations in this one, the serial data, where she's based in a newspaper which is inspired by or based on the Chronicle and Echo building, which was a beautiful Art Deco building in Northampton, which before I left, Northampton about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was demolished and is now an Aldi supermarket with car park. And it was a beautiful building. And I think there was a bit of scandal. It's the usual thing. There was a Notre Dame convent in the town centre in Northampton. And word has it that the builders, a management company, paid something like £1 for the building on the proviso that they would invest a load of money to keep it going. I think the convent itself had moved out. And they'd paid this nominal amount to invest all this money, and pretty much overnight, it started crumbling, and was a pile of ruins within a week. And then they built office buildings, which they made loads of money out of. There we go. There we go. Another
problem.
Sarah, do you
work with progress?
Do you work on two? Does anybody here? We'll have a show of hands. Do you work on more than one project at a time? Because I write crime. I forgot to mention that I do short stories. I've got 2 collections of short stories as well. So I tend to have 2 things on the go at once. So I'll have a crime novel and the next in the serial series, those 2, as well as some short stories. Does anybody do you all? Right. Oh, Janet's shaking her head.
No, I only ever write on one thing at the time.
I try very hard to write on one thing at a time.
I've got 7 things. I've got 7 things on the go at once. 7, and I do not recommend it at all. Completely stupid. There are lots of little reasons why I got to this situation due to the pandemic and writing a trilogy in one go with a friend, but it is dumb. I personally think writing 2 things is the best plan, because when you've finished one or a draft of one and it's gone to your editor or beta readers, you can get on with something else. So I think 2, and a serious thing and a frivolous thing might be a nice match. that would be my recommendation, which I can't follow myself because.
Before I published, I had 6 things in my head at the same time. So I had the first 4 books in one series, plus the novella, which I give away on my website, plus the romantic fantasy. And once I started publishing them, they very slowly dropped off one by one. So now I try very hard just to keep one thing at a time. But yeah, during the editing phase, of course, I'll switch to the next book.
I mean, you spread yourself too thin when you've got too many projects.
Yeah.
And then when you come back to a project yonks later, you're going, well, where was I up to? And you've almost got to start again with it.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having two different things. It doesn't have to be 2 different things, but 2 things, because I do get writer's block and I do believe it exists, because I can't Mark Billingham. Can't imagine that anybody would start at the beginning, especially with fiction, start at the beginning and write linearly all the way through to the end with no point of going, oh, I don't know what happens next. So I put more here, and then I either write a later bit if I know it, or I'll go to the other project. Martin, you were going to, you put your hand up.
Yeah, I kind of had half a hand up because deadlines for short stories for anthologies, for example. I'm doing a few, well, I regularly do a few book signing events, multi-author events where we all join as indie authors, and some of them attract anthologies, so they have to be done by a certain day. And if I put my hand up, yeah, I'll do it. That means I've got to get that done by a certain date, which means sometimes I am working on that and something else. The only other time really, I started to do books 5 and 6 simultaneously of the Judstone series, because I thought I had ideas for 2, and then just going back a little bit to what we've all been talking about in this recent conversation. As long as you capture it, I think. So it's like when I was writing songs, you get a fantastic lyric at the wrong time. Do you know what I mean? So as long as you capture it and write it down and park it for another time, then that stops you getting overwhelmed about that. But anyway. When I came to work on the 2 Judstone novels, I started them both. I both got to about chapter 3 on both, and then the biographies come along, so that took over. So I need to go back to them now, and probably like David says, what the hell was I even writing about on them 2? I need to go and find out.
Yeah, I'm the opposite camp to Douglas Adams. He's quoted as saying that I love a deadline, the sound of the whoosh as they go by. Yeah. I have to have a deadline. If I'm given something to do, I say, when would you like it by? Oh, whenever you like. No, tell me when you need it. Janet, has Jo given you a deadline? Said she
no, Jo hasn't given me any. I mean, bless her. It's great because she's such a busy woman. She's still sort of like a big leader in the travel and tourism industry, and she was awarded an MBE this year. So she's just very busy at sort of lots of speaking conventions and as a mentor and everything.
Right.
She was vice president of Celebrity Cruises and vice president of Disney at one stage. So she's done incredibly well on the business front, and she's been a leader for minority groups, for all the sort of like equality in the business place and everything like that. So she's in great demand. She was at St James's Palace last week with the Women of the World group, the charity, with Queen Camilla and Helen Mirren and Hannah Waddingham. And I said, how come you didn't have time to speak to me that day? These people are coming. So
are you not up there with Helen Mirren?
No, not at the moment. But no, Jo, fantastic. She just leaves me. She said, Jan, she said, the nicest thing she said to me, because we when she came down, we went with our partners and had lunch on the beach, and she said, Jan, there's nobody else that I'd rather write the biography with. Should I just want you to, basically I'm writing it, but it's a collaboration, because she wanted my name on the cover. She said, Jan, she said, you knew my mum and dad. I used to stay with them when we were at uni together, and they were like second parents to me. They were lovely. And she said, there's nobody I'd want to work with. And she's just really left it to me. So I was the one in the beginning that set out the deadlines. I was the one that sort of said, this is feasible, this is doable. And I've just on Friday I gave her the last manuscript, because we've done a couple of changes, because in her story her father has an affair, so we had to write that quite delicately, and it was important for me that she felt comfortable with what I was writing, because we interviewed the woman he had the affair with for 20 years, who now lives in Canada, and obviously Joe knows her very well, and she was part of the family in a sort of funny sort of way. So is writing delicately as well for all the people who are obviously still alive. Exactly. So, and I wanted Joe to be happy and comfortable with the book. So we made a few edits. She said to me what she was comfortable with and not comfortable with. So I made those changes, and I gave that to her on Friday. So I'm hoping now that that'll be the last of it, and then obviously the editing process comes next, and then we'll self-publish in September, October. Okay. So that's because October's a good time anyway, as we know, to sort of sell books. And in September, both of us, our background is in travel and tourism. So when we were at uni, her path went one way in the corporate way, and sort of I was a bit more maverick and a bit more entrepreneurial, and I went to Spain for 20 years. In Ireland for 10 years. So we've sort of, our paths are sort of crisscrossed as we've gone, but you know, it's great that we've stayed friends, and we've still got a fantastic working relationship. So yeah, fingers crossed for the launch then in the autumn.
Right. And presumably you're the same, Sarah, when you get a ghostwriting project in, you set your time, because when I get a book in, it normally comes in when it's due, and then I have 3 weeks to do the first set of sweeps. So I'll catalogue everything, look at the chapter lengths, and go through it a couple of times, and do all the timeline and character detail and so on and so forth. And then the author has 2 weeks to go through it, and then I have 2 weeks to go through it again, and then it goes back. So presumably when you get commissioned for ghostwriting, there's a timeline for that as well. And do you juggle it in between your other books?
In the last decade or so, the ghostwriting gigs that I've received have all been for people to pass down their families rather than for the public. So there's a little bit of a difference in the timeline, because if they're writing it to pass down to their families, they're already thinking about when they might pop their clogs.
Yeah.
And you know, with that in mind, you want to get things moving. I'm very much a deadline person as well. I don't enjoy the Douglas Adams idea of it whooshing by. No. I like to know where I stand, and if there's a deadline approaching, for me, if it's a healthy deadline, I love it, because you can just prepare so much and get everything ready. But not only do I love the deadline, I love to give it myself a week beforehand. I like some wiggle room, so I can promise and then deliver, and then if there's any issues, I've still got some before the deadline was given. So that kind of thing. But to answer your question, there's all the people that I've worked with for their life stories, their memoirs, whatever it's been. It's so far it's been really kind of me saying to them, this is what would be really good. This is a really structured way of working. How do you feel about that? And them saying, much similar to, I think it was Janet or somebody else that said, them just handing me a load of information in bags or like hundreds of folders and go, there you are, you work it out. Yeah. And me then going, yeah. Because, you know, it's a lot more than just, here's an idea, here's a deadline, let's write it. There's so much more involved. Yeah. One of the ones I did actually was, this is probably about 10 years ago now, might be a little bit more. I'd not long moved here, and I'd put a note in the local paper, local magazine, community magazine. I think I was responding to somebody else, and I happened to mention what I did. And they got in touch with me, and they said, do you want to write an article? I thought, yeah, okay, that's fine. So I wrote an article, wrote everything that I did, and somebody local-ish got in touch and said, I want you to write my life story. Oh, wow, this is cool, yeah. And she said, and I'll pay you for it, like that was a favour. That's kind of my point, you know. It's just,
well, yes,
I do it.
That's the thing that people forget, is our time is money.
Yeah.
Oh, can you see that? That is Douglas Adams' grave. I went there the other week.
Oh, yes.
It's come up a couple of times.
Highgate.
Highgate, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of other famous people, George Michael.
Wow.
Wow.
Karl Marx, yeah, it's a fantastic,
Yeah.
fascinating place to go if you like walking around cemeteries. But yeah, see, all depends.
Who doesn't? Does any of us go, no, we don't like cemeteries? Do we, as we're all self-published here, do any of you set your own deadlines? In other words, you've got a book that you imagine being finished by a certain date. Do any of you put up pre-orders for your book, knowing how Amazon hates you if you have to push a pre-order back? Do any of you do pre-orders?
I do a pre-order, but I only do pre-order when I know it's finished.
Right.
So I
I'm the
wouldn't
same.
use, because if you sometimes if you're driven by a date, things can go out the window because you're just gonna be driven by that date at no cost. So I wait. The pre-order thing is more from a marketing point of view to gain a bit of traction and a bit of awareness and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't do a pre-order to try and deliver on that date because I'd fail miserably.
I like bringing books out at science fiction conventions, so that's a sort of a deadline. I've got a convention coming up next weekend, but I'm not bringing out a book for that because I didn't feel I could kind of hit the deadline. But I am trying to finish a first draft before it. But that's just, it would be nice to get that out of the way, enjoy the convention, and then do something else.
Because you have a fan club at conventions, don't you?
Yes, yes.
I think once or twice you've mentioned that you sit in the bar with a box of your books.
I have
end up and leave with an empty box.
Yeah, I have done that, but I can't do it anymore. I've got too many books, so the box is too heavy. Which is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know.
I think sitting in the bar is a good thing, David.
Sorry?
Sitting in the bar is a good thing. Was that you sit in the bar with a box of books? Was that the thing?
I have done, yeah, and I've sold really well. I now have a dealer's table, but yeah, there's a couple of times I can remember, particularly when Crossing the Bridge came out, where I just wandered into the convention with the box, thought I'll have a drink before I set up, sat down with my drink, and people said, "Have you got a book out?" And I went, "Well, it's this one here." And they bought it. It was
I think that's the perfect way to sell books, sitting in a bar. Absolutely.
Yeah. That was a fantastic moment.
Behind you, David, you've got a flag. Is that the Federation of Planets?
Sorry. Oh yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay. Fellow Trekkie here.
It's normally unfurled. You got your window open.
I've got my window open. Yeah.
Normally.
Oh, yeah. I could see it. I used to have a T-shirt with that on years ago, but I could see it and I thought that looks awfully like the T-shirt I used to have, even the colour and everything. I thought it's got to be. If it isn't, I just sit here looking like a Trekkie on my own, don't
I? I've done my room out as the captain's quarters from the original series, which you can't quite see because it's the table shape, but it's down here.
Do any of you? I think the answer is no. Do any of you use pen names, different names for different genres? No, because I'm debating with myself at the moment because those two are under a pen name of Rachel Cavanagh, and I'm very fond of Rachel, but she gets very little traction from me on social media because I forget she exists. So because I'm fond of the name and she's a little chestnut-haired gravatar. I'm reluctant to change her, but on Amazon pages we're both on there, so it doesn't really matter.
I think one of the reasons I've steered clear of it is because you build as an indie author. A lot relies on yourself to build up a following, especially on social media. So I've always kind of felt you've built up my brand, Martin Tracy, so to speak. And then have you got to do it all over again for another character? Well, a pen name.
Character. It is a character.
It is a character. Yeah. So that feels like a lot of hard work for me to have to keep doing. Yeah. I like the idea of having a different pen name for different genres, but that's the thing that puts me off doing it, really.
There's got other names for other stories I've written in the past. Years and years ago, I co-produced an anthology in aid of charity for Help for Heroes, and there was only 2 of us writing, but there's about 8 names of short stories within and poetry within the book. So from that point of view, there were other people taking part, and I have used those names since, but not to the point that people know them or anything like that. And I write under S.J. Banham. I don't use my name Sarah at all, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. And I've done that, well, from the year dot. I've done that since the 1980s, the late 1980s. And when my publisher for the non-fiction book up there, that one, when the publisher were having a very good dialogue and discussion getting that book done, and then right at the last minute they said, oh, here's the cover, or they gave me two covers, choice of two, and I didn't like the other one, so I chose that one. But the name on the front was Sarah, and I'm like, I can't believe it. All this communication we've had the whole way through, and it's always been SJ. Why aren't you seeing this? And they say, oh, okay, we'll change it if that makes you happy. Like, they're doing me a favour. And I've been writing for 40 years. You're not doing me a favour. This is who I write under.
Crazy.
And they did it, and it was fine.
Yeah. Hi, Janet.
Yeah, interesting talking about pen names and using your initials only, because I did read, obviously after I'd published myself, but I did read that it's better to use your initials because some people are very either for or against female authors, and so you get some guys say, oh, I don't read any women authors, and you get some women that say I don't read any male authors. But if you're using your initial, nobody invariably knows who you are. So it's I think it's probably quite a good tactic to do. I think if I was starting over again, I would do something like that, but like Martin, now I've created my own brand and that's it now. But I wouldn't be bothered. But I think it's I'd advise other writers to do that. I think
that's
right. It was originally my reason.
I had a lot of thinking about it because I'm Jack, but
yeah.
I'm Jacqueline, but I've never liked the word Jacqueline, and I've never liked Jackie particularly. I've got my whole life being Jackie, but I've never actually liked it. But my husband, my best friend, everyone else calls me Jack. So when I was debating what name to write under, I thought, God, this self-publishing thing is a lot of work. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it under a name I actually want to be called.
Yeah.
So I chose Jack. But I find personally, I don't like initials because I find a disconnect with the author, immediate disconnect with the author.
That's interesting.
Because I don't know if they're female or male. It matters for some reason. I couldn't possibly tell you why.
That's interesting.
The only thing I was thinking about doing when I decided to do a fantasy series was whether or not to add a middle initial. Keep the name, but whether or not I would add, like Ian Banks and Ian M. Banks, for example. But for me, I ended up keeping the same name because, I'm incredibly lazy on social media. I'm not going to start going to doing two names when I struggled to do one. But also in your back matter and in your front matter, you've got all the links to your website. And I don't want to build a second website, and I don't want to have a second freebie out there to get people on a mailing list. So everybody's just stuck with the same freebie, and either they join or they don't join, and there's not a lot I can do about it.
I used to use my middle initial, but it was just so much hard work getting people to include it. It's like Sarah's experience. It was just people kept dropping it. Eventually, I just gave up on it because you just sound like an idiot insisting on this one letter.
But it's for me, it's a family thing. We've all got a middle initial.
Yeah.
I'm as Andrea D Woolhead, and that's how I sign myself. That's how I sort of feel I'm known. I didn't even think about sort of changing my name. As I said, I was an accidental author, so I didn't really put very much thought into it. But the family thing of having a middle initial goes back sort of at least 2 or 3 generations.
I don't have a middle initial.
We're going to lose Martin. We're going to lose Martin in a second. So we'll just say thank you very much to Martin. We may well carry on chatting.
Yeah, sorry, I can't.
Dare I ask Martin? Final question. Do you have a preference writing fiction or non-fiction, or is it nice to be able to switch from one to the other?
It's nice to be able to switch from one to the other. I don't have a favourite, and I still would, because this was bridged, sort of labelled about multifunctional different genres. It's probably still a genre I'm yet to write as well, to be honest. Although I like, crimes in there, supernaturals in there, horrors in there.
Mm.
Um, Obviously the non-fiction stuff is the non-fiction stuff, but I'd never say never. Who knows what's coming next? But yeah, to answer your question, I don't mind what it is as long as I enjoy writing it. I think that's the thing. You've got to enjoy writing it yourself.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Martin.
Thank
you for
you.
joining, coming back again.
I would love to come back again.
again.
Sorry I'm bailing out everyone, but lovely meeting you all and listening to you all.
I know I'm always being over optimistic when I say it's a 45, aim for a 45-minute panel, because I know, especially if David, I haven't given him much airspace today. It's normally the Morgan and David and everybody else show. we tend to pitch in. No,
bye, everyone.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
David.
Bye, and you. Bye.
So, Jack, you've got your, we go back to genre. You've got your romantasy coming out. What led you from crime? Is it just, I think you mentioned earlier on that you had this idea and it was a different genre. And now you've come back to it. How are you finding it, switching from one genre to another?
Okay, so the book came out already on the 5th of March.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fine. I mean, to be honest, it's kind of still a thriller. It's set in a medieval world. So that's a primary difference. There's no dragons, magic, spells, curses, mages, wizards. I don't do any of that stuff. It's just set in a medieval world, and there's a lot more sex.
Okay.
And that's the primary difference. My main hero in my thrillers, Stuart Finley, he is very modest. He is a fade to black kind of guy. Killian from my romantic fantasy, he is not. He can let it all hang out. So, there's more sex, but that's the primary difference. But other than that, I mean, I would still class them as thrillers. I had no problem switching. It was actually nice to have a break from Finn. I left him in a terrible place at the end of book 2. I did feel very bad about that. And then I concentrated on the romantasy, and now I'm back with Finn again, and I've picked him back up a bit. So this was good, and I was eager to get back to him when I did as well. But I've had difficulties with selling the book. Whereas I don't, the sales of the thrillers generally goes well. I mean, Jack, well, I'm happy. Harlan Coben wouldn't be, but the romantasy is, I find, very hard to sell, and it could be because it's as much thriller as it is romantasy, or it could be that I'm just not marketing it enough, or that the market is incredibly saturated for romance.
That was my thought, because it's supposed to be the new big thing, romantasy.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, David.
Yes, quite a number of things actually from all that. I find sort of mixing genres keeps you fresh. So if you've done one thing, you do something else, you're going to be fresher on that. To come back to Douglas Adams, I mean, he was the publishers insisted he does another Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book. They locked him in a hotel. That doesn't seem like a very nice life at all. So, he should have been allowed to do different things. But I had some careers advice at a science fiction convention from an editor. This is yonks and yonks ago, and I outlined what I was planning to do. And he said, well, David, you're an eclectic writer. You write all sorts of different things. And publishers don't like that because it's very difficult to market. This is when you're sending stuff off. And I said, well, I guess whichever book is the first one to sell defines the sort of writer I'm going to be. Now I discovered self-publishing. I can publish anything. So I can be an eclectic writer and lots and lots of different genres. But it is very hard to market. You're used to doing thrillers and you're doing romantasy. That's going to be harder to market because it's a different audience you're going for, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I heard the same advice. I heard, you've got to do at least 4 or 5 books in one series before you switch genres, if that's what you're going to do. and they advise against it. But
Yeah.
the book was in my head. It wanted to come out. It's a good genre for the time. I wanted a break as well from Finn. And, if I'm self-publishing, like you say, I can do what I want. I mean, even it's out there, even if it doesn't sell now and it sells in 2 years' time.
Yeah. But
doesn't really matter.
Which is better? 3 books in one series and then you switch to something else and it's fresh, or 6 books in one series where the last 3 books you're fed up with it and need a change and they're not so good. I switched, so
Yeah. So I switched.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong. Readers, there are 2 types of readers, I suppose, aren't they? Those that read in one genre and nothing else, which is fine, but other readers who go all over the place. And you're supposed to write what you want to read. Well, I read all sorts of things, so I should write all sorts of things.
The readers that I've had feedback from, they enjoyed both my thrillers and my romantasy. So they were primarily women. I mean, to be honest, my books are primarily aimed at women, I guess. Certainly the romantasy was.
My first non-science fiction book or non-fantasy book was the one I was talking about earlier that sold in the bar. I mean, I was in a science fiction convention and people came across and said, "David, have you got a new book out?" And I said, "Yes, I have." They said, "I'll buy one." And I went, no, wait, it's not science fiction. And they go, "I don't care, I'll buy it." So, I think you build up an audience for yourself. That's why famous writers have their names in huge letters on their book. Janet's desperate to say something.
She is.
I'm desperate to ask something to perhaps all of you. When you do write in different genres, do you keep separate mailing lists? Do you keep separate databases, or do you just whack them all into one and just rely on them wanting to read one of your books, like you said, David, because it's you writing it, that they're happy just to follow in you? They'd read anything that you write.
It goes back to that. Do you use a pen name? That's 2 sets of social media, 2 email lists you've got to administer. I find it hard enough to do social media and email lists anyway for just one person. So
what I did do was I segmented my list, and I've marked people who were interested in ISU, in the romantasy. They've either commented on it, or they downloaded the free copy when I sent it out to ARC readers, or I've heard back from them on it. And those ones I put in their own segment, and I will contact them specifically about ARC books in future. But no, they're all on the same list, and they're all going to get my newsletter, and the newsletter will sometimes be about romantasy and sometimes be about thrillers, and that's just who I am.
I've got 3 separate sign-ups, so people can opt in to whichever the crime fiction, women's fiction, or books about writing. And so I'd probably send a general newsletter to everybody, but then if it's specifically about crime, about my crime fiction or crime related, then they'd go to that portion. So I would keep them separate, but probably in between. I haven't done a newsletter for a couple of years, and it's on the jobs list to do. But then I'd send, so everybody would get one newsletter a month, whether it's a specific one or a specific genre or a general one, but not overload them. How often do you send a newsletter out? I mean, I get bombarded by some every day. They're usually sort of marketing related, give tips on marketing. I think once a month is enough.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Especially if somebody signs up to all 3.
I try to do mine once a month and fail. So I'm going to fail in March.
Yeah, I tried to do mine once a month, but end up failing a little bit.
Because it's also you've got to have content to if you've done. I mean, I wouldn't say you've done nothing in a month, but if I've not done nothing to do with my crime fiction, for instance, then I wouldn't send one of those newsletters out. You have to have relevant content.
I've got blog posts pre-prepared that I've written. I've got 3 or 4 of them. I just don't get round to doing it. Sending it out. Stupid.
Right. I have a blog that I blog every week and publish it on a Monday morning.
Wow.
So people anticipate it, but it isn't anything to do with my book and my writing. It's the Monday Blues blog, and it's themed, so something happens in the week, and I go from something personal to something international along a theme, and a couple of photographs, and the blog's been running for a few years now, and it gets read on 6 different continents. So
I
I'm
find that I
quite
don't. Sorry, I find that I don't always have something writerly to write about, but then I'll write something more personal about what I'm thinking. Generally, that is not necessarily writer related, not genre related, just what's going on.
That's what you're supposed to do. That's the advice: is people get to know you as a person.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But I'm very English and don't like that at all. So.
I do share a bit of personal stuff in my newsletter. It goes out monthly, but then I also include what's been going on, what I've got going on, and I have a featured author part of it as well. So there's other things happening within the newsletter.
Because that's something that I've been invited to previously, and I've done once recently, where you have newsletter swaps. So you do include other people in my little brain, my little self pub fest brain went on there. I'm almost at capacity. Every time I launch something new, the latest thing is the 300-word competition, but the up to 300 words. But yes, every time I launch something new, David goes, surely you haven't got another evening or another.
I can't keep up with
I can't keep up with myself.
I'm involved in. And 300 words, exactly 100 words. That's what you should do.
I do. Well, I used to do one of those exactly 100 words. I then ran out of time. I was getting probably 30 or 40, which doesn't sound a lot, 30 or 40 entries a month, and it was a free competition. And then I rested it for about 18 months. Especially I was in the process of mum wasn't well, and then she died, and then aunt had a fall and she died, and I moved house 4 times. And so that put paid to anything really. And then about 18 months ago, I resurrected it in a slightly different version of 50 words. So now they're 50 words exactly. I do that every month.
I'm just plugging drabbles because I invented them.
Exactly. And you're noted. Your Google it. Yes, I was reading the article the other day.
I'm on Wikipedia. Yeah.
Yay.
Sadly not as an author of my books.
So there we go. So I think we love what we do, don't we? It's clear from these panels that we love what we do. Has anybody, final question, has anybody, are any of you going into a new format or a new genre that you haven't done before? Oh, Sarah.
Yeah, I've this is a tiny little bit longer than a last word thing though. All these stories and novels that I have written and thought were wonderful over my career, so since I was about 18, 19, and haven't done anything with. I did not like the idea of me finishing my life and not doing anything with them. So last year I said to another writer friend, I said to them, okay, I think I had a lot of stress at home as well, so my mind wasn't in the right place. But I said to her, I'm going to get all of these stories and the poetry and the short stories and everything, and they're all completely different genres, and I'm going to put them all in one book. And she sort of said to me, this is like a nervous breakdown in a book. And she said to me, instead of one book, which is going to be like this big, why don't you write a series and have something? So I thought, actually, I've got a story in my mind for an overarching story where all of these can fit in. So now I've got a series happening. Never written a series before, talked about it loads of times, had loads of ideas for them, but never done that. I've done the first book in the series, which is going to be novella sized, slightly nearer novel sized. I've parked that while it's been beta read, and I'm like 3/4 of the way through this dark romance. When that's finished, I'll go back to that. But it means all of these stories won't be left in a drawer and forgotten about, because they contain some really lovely themes and some amazing characters. So yeah, that's what my big thing is.
when I was experimenting, I tried an awful lot of short stories. I wrote a play. I wrote 2 acts of a play. I never worked out how to end it. So I've got a play and I've got some poems that just came spontaneously. I never planned them. I woke up with them in my head and get to about the 3rd verse and think I should really start writing this down. So I did. I've got loads of short stories, and yeah, I would like it if those short stories ended up in some sort of anthology at the end, but I'm not going to put any energy into it right now. Right now, I'm doing my novels. I'm happy doing my novels, and I would just rather continue with that. But yeah, I feel the same. I would like those stories to see the light of day at some point.
Well,
The legacy as well.
David's the person to help you with your finishing your script.
Oh,
I come from a theatre background.
Oh yes, yeah. I started off writing in theatre. That's where I had my first sort of success.
ah,
So
okay,
to
excellent.
end of play. It's blackout, curtain, done.
Like
I'm
the
gonna
end.
have the 3rd act first.
Andrea, what are you once part 2 of NASA is put to bed, do you have a plan for what you would like to do writing wise for you?
Yeah, I've got an old blog called Conversations with Marmite, which was when I used to write to my dog. And it's about my trip that I did overland from Singapore to England. And I think that, and it encompasses lockdown and all the silly things that happened in lockdown. And I'd quite like to sort of build on that and sort of link the ideas together and turn that into a story.
Fab idea.
So yes, it's there in the ether. It's got to, sediment's got to settle, and I'll, sort of sit there and sort of face it. But I just enjoy sitting writing, or even thinking about writing. Things come to me, not when I'm at the computer, and then I sort of get there and sort of put them together and play around with them. But I don't think I'm a natural writer. I
Takes practice. Just takes
yes,
practice.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And David's going to be working on a collection of poetry.
Me, good grief! I'm not a poet. In my eclectic range of genres, poetry is not one of them.
He lives with a poet. Dawn's a poet.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. I'm sorry for Martin that we didn't touch more on genres while he was in the room, but he can watch this when it's up and ready, which it will be today. So thank you, everybody. And I know most of you are booked in for other things, so it'd be lovely to see you. And they're always interesting, even if they're the same topic with different authors. It's always interesting to see, and we always go off at tangents. I have an idea of sort of topics we can cover, but I know we're never going to run out of things to say, and we could keep going. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And, see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.